Mike remembered that morning down to the smallest detail. The sun was glaring against the windshield. Catherine was laughing, humming along to a song on the radio and holding his hand as if she were afraid to let go even for a second. They had just gotten married. They were on their honeymoon with a suitcase full of beach clothes and the feeling that an entire life lay ahead, one in which nothing bad could possibly happen. The impact was sharp and dull. Then, Silence thought they agreed not to rush things. It was a strange decision for a couple who had already gone through a wedding, a honeymoon, and hospital corridors, but there was no other way. Catherine needed space, and Mike needed patience. More patience than he had ever known he possessed. She started working. A new job, new people, a life that didn't press on her with memories. Sometimes she came home tired, sometimes withdrawn, sometimes too quiet. Mike learned to read her mood not by her words, but by the pauses between them, and yet there were days when she pulled away. "You look at me as if you know who I'm supposed to be," she said once, "and I don't know that, and it makes me angry." He lowered his gaze. "I just remember," he replied quietly. "Sometimes that's harder than forgetting." She didn't answer, but that night she couldn't fall asleep for a long time. The past didn't return as memories, it returned as sensations. Sudden anxiety in a car, a clenched heart when a siren sounded, disgust at the smell of hospitals. Catherine caught herself thinking that her body remembered more than her mind. One day, she ended up in the hospital again, just a routine checkup. Mike sat nearby, trying not to touch her unless necessary. When the doctor left, Catherine suddenly started crying, silently hiding her face in her hands. Mike hesitated. Then he hugged her, carefully as if she might disappear. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I don't know why, but being near you feels both safe and painful at the same time." "I know," he said. "Me too." It was the first time they cried together. Gradually, new rituals appeared between them. Morning coffee in the kitchen in silence. Aimless walks. Movies they only watched halfway through because they fell asleep side by side. It wasn't the same love he remembered, but it was real now, still. Sometimes Catherine caught herself thinking, what if there had been no accident? And sometimes another thought followed, what if I met him for the first time today? Would I choose him? She didn't dare ask that question out loud. One evening, Mike took out a box of old things. "I thought, maybe you should decide what to do with this," he said. "I don't want to keep you in the past if it isn't yours." Inside were photos, letters, small objects from their life. Catherine went through them for a long time. Then she closed the lid. "I'm not ready to throw this away," she said. "But I can't go back there either." "I'll understand any decision you make," Mike replied. And for the first time, it was the truth without fear. That night she kissed him first. Hesitantly, slowly, as if learning from scratch. There were no memories in that kiss. Only choice. The past never returned. But the present didn't break either. They didn't know whether this would become love, or merely an attempt not to lose each other completely. They didn't know whether they had the strength to live without guarantees. But every morning they woke up next to each other. And for now, that was enough. Asterisk when Mike came to. He heard only sirens and his own heart pounding somewhere in his throat. He called Catherine's name, not understanding why she wasn't answering. Her eyes were closed, her face unnaturally pale. That was the first time in his life he was truly afraid. The doctor said he had been lucky. Bruises, a few stitches. She hadn't. Severe traumatic brain injury. A coma. We don't know when she'll wake up or what the consequences will be. They said casually, as if they were talking about a broken arm. Mike didn't go home. He slept in a chair beside her bed, held her hand, talked to her even when the nurses advised him not to exhaust himself. He told her about the wedding, about how she cried while reading her vows, how she laughed when he mixed up the words. He repeated her name again and again, afraid she might get lost somewhere between those walls. When Catherine woke up, he was there. She looked at him for a long time, studying him like a stranger on a bus. There was no fear or joy in her eyes, only empty curiosity. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Do we know each other?" That question hit harder than the accident. The doctors explained amnesia. Memories of her life before the injury were gone. Maybe partially. Maybe forever. She remembered words, ordinary things. but not people. Not feelings. Not herself with him. Mike smiled when he came to see her. He brought flowers, showed her photographs, told stories from their life together. He said "we" as if the words still meant something. Catherine listened politely, attentively, sometimes even laughed, but it was laughter without roots. "You say I loved you," she said once. "But I don't feel it, and that scares me." He nodded. He was scared too, but he didn't have the right to be weak. They started living together again. For her, it felt like moving in with a stranger who knew too much about her. She noticed how he automatically reached for her hand, how he knew which tea she liked, how he called her by a shortened name that didn't resonate inside her dot. Sometimes she cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't hear. She felt as if she were living someone else's life, playing the role of a wife she no longer was. Mike was breaking too, quietly. He kept her old messages, reread postcards, watched videos where she looked at him with love in her eyes. It felt unfair that he remembered everything and she remembered nothing, as if love had become a one-sided burden. "You don't owe me love," he said one evening when silence hung between them again. "I just can't leave." Catherine looked out the window. "And if I can never become the woman I was?" she asked. "If I'm different? Then I'll try to love this one," he answered after a pause. Time passed. She began to get used to him, to his voice, his patience, the way he stayed silent beside her without demanding anything. It wasn't love, more like trust. Warm, cautious. One day they were looking through their old wedding album. Catherine suddenly touched a photo of them dancing. "I don't remember this," she said. "But it hurts that I don't." Mike said nothing. He was afraid to scare this fragile moment away. She never remembered the past. The memories didn't return, and neither did the same love. But something new appeared between them. Slow, clumsy, nothing like a fairy tale. One evening, Catherine lay down beside him and, for the first time, took his hand herself. "I don't know where this will lead," she said, "but I want to try in my own way." Mike closed his eyes. He didn't know whether it was a victory, a new beginning, or just another chance that could break again. But he held her hand, just as tightly as that morning in the car. And this time, he didn't let go. The calm that settled between them turned out to be fragile. Mike felt it even before everything started falling apart. Catherine grew quieter. She stayed late after work, spent more time on her phone, as if searching for answers where none could exist. One evening, she said, "I went to the doctor again." Mike tensed. "And?" He said the chances of remembering the past are almost zero. If anything comes back, it will be in fragments, and not necessarily good ones. The words hung between them. Mike nodded, but something inside him snapped. For the first time, he allowed himself to think, what if she never remembers who we were? That same week, she ran into someone from her past, by chance, in a cafe. The man said her name so naturally that she turned before she had time to think. "Catherine? It's you." God. He knew her smile, knew how she wrinkled her nose when she thought. He had been part of her life, the one she didn't remember, an ex-boyfriend. Nothing serious, as Mike later said when she told him. But his name lingered in the air like a threat. "With him, I didn't feel pain," she said honestly that evening. "No fear, no pressure." Mike sat down. "Breathing became hard. And with me?" Asterisk, she was silent for too long. "Yes," she answered quietly. "Because with you there's everything. A past I don't know and a future I'm afraid of." He didn't shout. He didn't beg. But that night, for the first time since she'd returned from the hospital, he slept in the living room. The following days, they lived as if in parallel worlds. He in memories. She in search of herself. Mike realized he wasn't jealous of a specific person, but of her freedom. Of the chance to start from a blank page, without him. One day he couldn't take it anymore. "Tell me honestly," he said. "If you met me now, right now, without history, without the accident, would you stay?" Catherine closed her eyes. "I don't know," she whispered. "And that scares me more than anything." She packed her things in 2 days. Not because she didn't love him. She didn't know whether she did. She needed to understand who she was without him. Mike helped her pack. Calmly. Too calmly. "I'm not leaving forever," she said at the door. "I know," he replied. "But if you leave, you might not come back." She left. Days without her were worse than the hospital. Mike allowed himself anger for the first time. At fate, at the driver, at himself, at love that couldn't be proven by logic. He stopped looking at photos, hid the box of the past away. Catherine lived alone. And for the first time in a long while, she breathed freely. But at night, she dreamed of him. Not the one from the photos. The present one, tired, silent, with eyes full of patience. A few weeks later, she got into a minor accident. Nothing serious. But sitting on the roadside, hands shaking, she suddenly remembered. Not the wedding. Not the honeymoon. She remembered him screaming her name, holding her hand. Being afraid of losing her, she called him first. "Mike, I remembered something." He was silent for a long time. "And now what?" he finally asked. "I don't know if everything will come back," she said through tears. "But I know I don't want to live without you, even if we have to start over every day." He came. They sat in the car without touching each other. Love didn't return instantly. It returned as pain, fear, choice. They didn't know if they had enough strength this time. But both knew running away would hurt more than staying. And this time, they stayed. Not as who they were, but as who they had become. After that call, nothing happened immediately. There were no hugs, no tears on shoulders, no loud words. They started living together again, carefully, as if walking on thin ice that had already cracked once. Memories returned in fragments. Catherine could suddenly stop in the middle of the street, remembering how Mike once waited for her in the rain, or flinch at the smell of coffee, the same one they drank every Sunday. But along with light came pain. The realization of how much they had lost. "I remember that I was happy," she said one evening. "But I don't remember how." Mike nodded. "And I remember everything. And sometimes I want to forget. Just a little." Their relationship was no longer equal. He carried the past on his shoulders. She carried only its shadow. Sometimes Catherine caught herself being afraid of his love. It was too strong, too devoted, as if it left her no choice. One day she went to the doctor again. Alone this time. When she returned, she was silent for a long time. "What did they say?" Mike asked. "That my brain has already done everything it could," she replied. "Now it's either acceptance or breaking." That night, she didn't sleep. In the morning, she packed her things for the second time, slowly without panic. Mike watched silently. He already knew that look. "I love you," she said. "But not the way you love me. And maybe I never will." Those words didn't break him. They simply put a period where he had long been afraid to see one. "I don't want you to live with me out of pity," he said. "Or obligation. I vowed to love, not to hold." She cried. He didn't. He had been crying inside for too long already. They separated quietly, without scandals, without accusations. Catherine moved to another city, started a new life, without memories, but with honesty toward herself. Sometimes she remembered Mike as a man who had been her home, even if she no longer remembered that home. Mike stayed. He learned to live alone. Learned not to wait, not to replay the past, not to prove love at the cost of his own life. He kept the box of memories, not as a burden, but as a part of himself. A year passed. They met by chance at a train station. A brief glance. A smile. No awkwardness. "You look good," she said. "So do you," he replied. They didn't talk about the past. It no longer demanded explanations. When their trains departed in opposite directions, Mike realized one simple thing. Sometimes love isn't about being together. It's about letting go and still keeping tenderness, and somewhere deep inside he was grateful. For loving. For not betraying himself. And for learning how to live on. Mike's train pulled out first. He watched through the window as the platform slowly dissolved into motion. He was just about to sit down when he felt something clench inside him, sharp, painful, as if his body was screaming faster than his mind could think. He stood up. At that very moment, Catherine stepped forward. Then another step. She stood watching his train leave and suddenly understood. For the first time in the entire year, that the silence inside her did not mean peace. It meant loss. She was overwhelmed by a wave. Not a memory, not an image, a feeling. This is not how it's supposed to end. Mike, she shouted without thinking. He didn't hear her. The noise of the train drowned out everything. So she ran. Catherine ran along the platform, gasping for breath, ignoring the conductor's shouts. Fragments flashed through her mind, not pictures, but emotions. The fear of losing him, the cold of a hospital floor, his voice breaking when he thought she couldn't hear. Suddenly, Mike stopped short. His heart was pounding as if it were about to burst. He didn't know why, but he pulled the emergency brake. The train lurched. "What are you doing?" Passengers yelled. He was already running into the vestibule when he heard his name. His real name. The way only she ever said it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. She stood a few meters away. Confused, tearful, real, not calm, not composed, alive. "I don't remember everything," she said breathlessly, "but I remember what matters. I remember that without you, I am empty. And if I let you go now, I will break for good." He looked at her and, for the first time in a long while, didn't hold back his tears. "I don't want to be your obligation." "You're not an obligation," she said sharply. "You're my choice. Even if I have to make that choice again every single day." He stepped closer, slowly, as if he were afraid she might disappear. "You understand that this could hurt again, right?" "Yes," she nodded. "But this time I'll remember why I'm staying." He held her, not as a savior, not as someone who had been waiting, but as an equal, a person who allowed himself to risk again. The train left without him. A few months later, Catherine remembered something else. How they laughed in the kitchen, how she fell asleep on his shoulder. But even if that had never returned, it would have been enough. Because now she knew love is not memory. Love is the decision to stay when running away is easier. And this time they didn't run. They didn't celebrate the return. There were no loud words, no promises of forever. They simply went together in silence in the same taxi, holding hands as if it were the only proof that any of this was real. The first weeks were harder than anything that had come before. Catherine would sometimes wake up at night not knowing where she was or why this man, whom she had chosen but still didn't remember, was beside her. She cried for no clear reason. She was angry at herself, at him, at the memories that returned when they weren't needed. Mike was no longer a hero. He got tired, he snapped. Once he slammed the door and walked the streets until morning because he could no longer be strong. "I'm not made of steel," he said when he came back. "I can't carry both of us anymore if you don't move toward me." That was the turning point. Catherine began real treatment. Psychotherapy, trauma work. Painful conversations after which she left completely drained. For the first time, she allowed herself not to run from the pain, but to look it in the face. One day she brought home the same box of memories. "I'm ready," she said. They went through the items slowly. Photos, notes, tickets. She didn't cry. She listened to herself, and then like an electric shock. "You were scared back then," she said, looking at a photo from the hospital. "But you didn't show it." Mike froze. "You remember?" "No," she answered honestly. "I feel it, and that's enough." That night, for the first time, she said, "I love you," not as a memory, but as the present. Life didn't become easier. A year later, she was offered a job in another country. A real chance. A big one. "I don't know what to choose," she said. "Myself or us." Mike was silent for a long time. "If you choose me out of fear, we lose," he finally said. "If you go, I'll wait, but without losing myself." She went. They lived at a distance. They argued, made up. Sometimes they didn't speak for weeks. More than once, they came close to the edge, and then she came back. No big words. Just a suitcase in the hallway. "I still don't remember our wedding," she said. "But I want another one." Again, consciously. He looked at her and smiled through tears. This time without promises of forever. This time with a promise to be honest. They married a second time, quietly, without guests, without photographers. Just the two of them, as they had become. Catherine never remembered everything. Mike never forgot anything. But between memory and forgetting, they built something stronger than the past. Not a perfect love. A real one. Their second wedding felt almost unreal. No guests, no music, no loud words, just signatures, a few exchanged. Glances and the feeling that they were challenging fate once again. The first months were tense but honest. They didn't pretend to be happy, they fought for it. And just when Mike allowed himself to believe that this time everything would hold, Catherine began to change. At first, it was small things. She forgot words, got lost in familiar places. Once, she called him from the very street where they had lived for 2 years. "I don't know where I am," she said calmly. Too calmly. Hospital. Tests. Silence in the corridors. The trauma caused delayed complications, the doctor said. Degenerative processes. Memory and cognitive functions will begin to fade, gradually, but irreversibly. Mike sat motionless. How long? A year, maybe 2, or sooner. Catherine stared out the window. So I'll disappear again? She asked. In parts. The doctor answered honestly. She accepted it faster than Mike did. I don't want you to go through this again, she said that same night. Watching me erase myself, I've already taken too much from you. You are not a burden, he said sharply. You are my life. But fear slowly poisoned their days. Catherine began recording videos. For him. For herself. For the future version who would remember nothing. She wrote instructions, left notes in drawers, under pillows, in his jacket. If you're watching this, I loved you. If I'm angry, don't believe me. If I ask you to leave, stay. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.